Origen will find it harder to execute than normally super clean plays.
And when you're looking at a Bandazir and an enemy team first picking Corki here, you know that you kind of have to execute in the early game. Obviously, one of the strongest scaling picks in the mid lane is the Corki, and see what kind of special pick Schalke has to answer that, because they opted to ban the Karma instead.
And that's what I agree with you on, is that you have full information that Corki will 99% of the time be the first pick if it's a Azir ban and you're not going to be repeat banning one. So theoretically, you got a plan for it. And it seems like right now, it's potentially a rollback of the sort of style we saw in the previous game. That was Sejuani Akali. Real chance we'll just see the Jarvan Akali play through mid lane extensively, but they don't have to be married to that idea.
And maybe there will be some adaptation heading into the draft, or heading into the game today, rather, for Schalke and No Fear. However, Kold will pick up the Skarner, the other Void Crawler thing.
Nailed it.
Got him. We'll see if he can have a more impactful early game than we saw in the previous game. Very similar picks coming through the Akali. The biggest difference that we're seeing this time around is Abbedagge teases us with that Maokai, but will ultimately be the Kaisa. So once again, we're getting this Kaisa Ezreal bottom side of the map, a Skarner in the jungle. It feels very set up for early game action.
Do notice, though, that there is not very likely to be a secondary AD carry for Upset to play the same frontline play that suited Kobe, where he could trade his life for 2.5 times the damage, or if I say half the health bar of 3 members, and Corki within his Infinity Edge could just clean up the fights. This is going to have to be a little bit more gritting the teeth and choosing your spots more carefully, you would imagine, depending on what we see rounding out this draft. Speaking of rounding out the drafts, no supports locked in just yet. And it seems like a lot of the tank supports are going to be the first ones to be ripped away.
And interesting as well, because IgNar, of course, historically a guy who's willing to play some stuff that is a bit more out there, is a bit more innovative, so you have to wonder if this does favor him. But I like what you're talking about with Upset being kind of the lone carry on this team, because the numbers show us that too. 32% or more of the team's damage percent. Pretty much across the board, this is the guy that you look at mid to late game to get things done for this Schalke lineup. But with the Nico now banned away, we're going to see what will they pair him with, how will they set him up for success.
And IgNar, when he was on BBQ Oliver's in the past, always a fan of the red side 5th pick support counter picks. Real chance they could consider that, or you just take the strongest playmaker available. Feels like he only plays hook champions these days. I see some nodding of heads, unsure what to make of that. But no doubt the comms are there, and they will not be giving him this 5th pick on the red side. They're taking Thresh, and it's something Origen are going to have to deal with.
And Origen now have to debate what they can get done on the top side of the map. Need something safe. The potential for the Jarvan flex is still alive and well, despite hits to the jungle pool across the board. Of course, interestingly, Olaf is still up and available, but neither side has opted to prioritize it this time around. The GP feeling more and more like a universal safe pick.
The one thing that has been accomplished by taking the Thresh at 4th pick is that because, like you mentioned, there's a Jarvan flex, it does stop Alphari from playing Rumble, as champion he loves to play, because Jarvan top lane is one of the counters to Rumble top lane. So it does, if you can pull that off against a team like Origen, or maybe even expect over on Excel, that red side Jarvan flex can actually get a lot of value. Looking for a support pick here, it might be rolling back Gold and Oldie in the Alistar. A lot of standard tank supports are removed. Mithy doesn't play range supports as often. Gonna go into the Alistar and tank the hooks if he has to.
And now to see, obviously love the playmaking potential for this champion, but just something that has not been prioritized in the world of picks like Rakan, like Nautilus, but with them all banned away, never hurts to go back to a classic, as you said, Papa. And now, Schalke, will they utilize the flex pick of the J4? The Gnar now will be locked in onto the top side, so it shouldn't be too bad of a matchup for him early on, and the potential for teamfight impact is always there when you have a Gnar on the top side of the map.
Definitely looking to try to keep the Gangplank on a short leash, but not always kill potential in this matchup. We had it feels like day on day, month on month for a long time, a couple of years ago, this GP versus Gnar matchup. Wait and see how it goes here. I feel like GP, more often than not, can find a place of stability, and Gnar can't just run over the lane unless you go for a full split push build with rapid fire cannon, throw in an IE. We've seen some crazy stuff over in Korea to try to get relevance in the 1v1. Now you're gonna need timing attacks, but you can pull off some cool ones. My favorite, Jarvan Cataclysm, puts out plenty of walls for the Gnar ult to slam people down.
And I'm looking for that synergy. Trick and Abbedagge obviously struggling yesterday, see if they can tune it up. And if not, maybe we see Schalke put some resources onto the top side of the map. Not something we're necessarily used to seeing, but up against a name like Alphari, never hurts to try to put him as far down as you possibly can. Two teams Set up for a very explosive game. Lots of CC on both sides. Might just be a farm fest in the early game, but I'm ready to see what happens when level 6s come around. Here, folks, both teams close in the standings. Of course, 6 and 7 for OG, 7 and 6 for Schalke No Fear as we get into our 4th game of the day. Time to find out who comes out on top. And here we go already into the game. No one looking for an aggressive level 1. You see a 5-point setup. All right, well played, mysterious guests in the audience that are not definitely Broxa and Youngbuck. Definitely other people, folks. But Mithy getting us started with the
cowbell, baby.
He's ready. He's feeling it.
That's what we've been deprived with Alistar out of the meta. The level 1 king in terms of the cowbell. The buff on 914 that brought Alistar into consideration a bit more. And remember, there had to be a lot of bans to actually get down the well a little bit here. As hook's going to land onto Patrik.
Well played. Good bit of damage. Patrik forced to move out early, but a quick level up there. Going to make sure that he can make it out to safety.
Able to escape without too much, but at the end of the day, going to hurt his level 1, that's for sure. But the big change to Alistar was just giving him a bit more mana. Very, very mana-constricted champion. Champion I enjoy playing. One full rotation at level 3, and you were basically That was how low his base mana was. So giving him something like 70, 80 mana, I don't have the number in front of me, does make it a bit more forgiving to try to look for trades. You always have to be particular because the exit route's not going to be extensive if you are an Alistar. And Trick was going for a kind of a cheese top lane gank super early, but he can try to pivot into blue. Scouted out by the level 1 ward from Origen. Let's see if there's going to be any cross-map plays here, or if it's just going to be a freebie.
And 3 level 1 wards committed by the side of OG to spot Trick out. A lot of respect being shown to him as he will take the buff. And now we're set up for potentially a bit of vertical jungling, as Jarvan should have sole control of the top side of the map. See if Skarner wants to match and push into enemy jungle.
They must have had a real read that Trick loves the level 2 ganks every time, because they have every single possible entrance scouted out. They scouted out if he wants to follow the Gnar to lane to look for a level 2 gank. They scouted out taking the wide route where you EQ over to the Baron pit and then gank from there. And they scouted out a mid lane gank. So that is some supreme knowledge that was available. As we see, some of the warding was in the picture-in-picture in the bottom left.
And Kold, very defensive option here to move to the top side just in case the gank comes through anyway. Means that looks like Trick will get the access to 3 buff him. So a bit of a difficult spot. Have to see how much XP it costs Kold to spend so much time moving towards the top side of the map. And meanwhile, bot lane hard pushing in.
And that's the lack of lane priority that makes it really too bold to try to look for a blue buff steal there. The collapse with Lantern and all the other CC abilities on the IgNar means it's too risky to try to go for a blue buff. So Kold is just going to try to path from ahead. Because you saw that early contest, there is a 0% chance that Raptors would take in. Jarvan takes a lot of damage. He wants to go big camps. Machete is the first indicament of that approach. So just going to take away what he can, do some counter jungling. Small Raptor is going to live an extended life. Yes, it's no blue buff, but it's something for Kold.
And Kold will now be spotted out. Alphari actually dominating here. Level advantage moving forward onto Odoamne. Eyes on the hop. Where's it going to go? A brief freeze frame, but will back off here. Going to deny a decent amount of XP. That tower happy to farm up those minions, but Odoamne definitely not where he wants to see them go. The TP available, but has to be careful about returning to lane here. Alphari already building up a huge CS advantage. 10 in his favor. We'll see what Odo can get back.
You wonder why they didn't just proxy the minions between the 2 turrets. You would preferably want to see, as the Gangplank, the minion wave actually group and push back the minions towards you to give you another era of safety when Kold is no longer playing topside. So no incentive to fully clear the minion wave behind. Want to punish the Gnar as much as possible, and definitely not the ideal first back timing in a lane matchup where you do scale towards mid-game relevance in terms of the 1v1, cloth armor, refillable, no more. Trick waiting for his E cooldown. This is a hard gank to pull off. You can be headbutt into the turret if you mess to swap the timing.
Need to be careful. Ignore potentially the finish. You're up the flash forward the play. That's a classic, not one I've seen in a while, but the minions are there to body block. Mithy is going to get the pulverize. Will punt it back in the tower. The flash burning though, but still Upset will grab the first blood. Well executed by Schalke.
Bit of chicken played around that play, but enough damage onto Mithy. And he's unable to actually get through. He tried to hold on to his cooldowns to go for the QW play, the pulverize into headbutt into turret, but that actually denied him aftershock for a long time and means he takes a lot of damage. Remember, you need the aftershock play here to actually be able to fight back. The bone plating goes down. By the time the Q, which wasn't used on IgNar or Upset early, and then a flash, he tried to go for the same sort of play we were talking about, but unfortunately was scouted out by Schalke.
Very close in terms of execution overall, and while we may have expected this game to be a lot more about mid-jungle, it's sort of about the bot lane and the top lane now as well. As Trick's found success, Kold may look to do the same. Was forced to back off here in the play.
And I was actually going to be really disappointed if Trick just played mid lane again. I know there's been a lot of talk around the classroom and the community about this mid-jungle synergy and maybe mid-jungle over-reliance. Speaking of mid, Abbedagge gets a nice trade. Is it that Abbedagge needs those resources in order to have a good game, or is it the Trick only goes mid lane? Is a very, very different thing that's hard to evaluate with limited stage games. This is a game where you look at the lineups and say, yeah, avoid the Corki for a while. Gnar doesn't have any kill pressure pre-level 6, and even then it's going to be tricky. Bot lane, you need to play around this Thresh because Thresh is a fantastic laning champion. If you get the turret first, it's a fantastic roaming champion. He actually sucks in late game teamfights in a game like this because you hit a hook, you dive in, and 2 Infinity Edge crits from Corki, you're dead. There's really no way to stave off that. Your only relevance is diving into the middle of a fight, putting down a box, usually as your kind of eulogy before you go down. So given that, play through the lane, get it snowballed, and allow there to be pockets of fog of war where Thresh can come through and enable a killer instinct. If you just wait around and never go bot lane, IgNar is very unlikely to have any impact on the game.
And not only do I like it in the sense of the draft overall in terms of how they're approaching it, I like it in the players as well, because Trick and IgNar are a duo, of course, known for being excellent when they are able to play proactive playmakers like this. We saw a bit of struggles with the IgNar Blitzcrank last time was on stage, the Thresh with the flash play, obviously a bit easier to execute, if a bit less obnoxious to deal with. And Abbedagge now, they're going to have to back off. Your Dragon's now being contested. Mithy now moving in, going to punch Trick out. Wants to get a little bit more, but Kold is now moving forward. Now has to back off. Abbedagge gets a decent amount of damage now, but Trick is dead. That means the Ocean Drake should be free. Patrik on the backside. Can't get something done. Abbedagge going to grab one. Can he make his way out? Mithy is next on the menu. This Akali is just raking in the kills. Upset's going to grab that one. Nukeduck gets a little bit of damage down on the fire there. We'll back off. Is anything else going to come through? Patrik ready and waiting to go over the wall here. Have to respect the Corki damage.
Instinct still up.
Upset isn't going to fish for it. Backing on Vision, however. Looks like both sides have agreed. Nukeduck, though,
wants to interrupt.
Steps forward. It's the rocket down. Upset going to be in trouble. That connects. It immediately goes in, but no, the Hextrigger going to buy a bit more time. Patrik smells blood in the water, but will not find the kill. And both sides going to back off. The Ocean Drake, the real survivor in that entire exchange.
Trader flashes at the end could be returned to. That's what happened with Corki overstaying. We're going to watch the replay here. Schalke have had pressure in the bot lane the entire time. That's why they eventually make this play, but we go back to that old age analysis of the fact that Cannon Barrage is there to contest first, and I think Mithy plays this perfectly. Buffers his CC, holds onto his Pulverize till the Jarvan is in kill range, and they pick that up. But the first query is it smart to contest? The hard contest, the full contest they put in when the damage numbers aren't there. There's a lot of brawling afterwards, and Schalke do maintain a 2-kill advantage overall.
Not quite a 1K gold lead, and neither side is going to get to Drake either. The dismay of Schalke. They were quite close there in the exchange, but overall, to walk away with the kill advantage has to feel pretty good. And a brief moment where they no longer have to concern themselves with the global pressure from Alphari. See what OG do to respond to this. Level 6 is going to come in shortly for Mithy. Will make it a lot easier for him to force plays. Kold still lagging behind a little bit in terms of level 6 as well. Skarner obviously crucial. We talked about the QSS tax in the previous game. Have to see if it's going to be an issue this time around. It was not for Splice in our previous game.
That's true, and they found a big gold lead in the mid game that kind of meant that even if Skarner was ulting people, there wasn't enough damage behind it to get kills. In case you're wondering where this game goes, it scales on. The double 80 carry on Origen are not quite double Infinity Edge 80 carries, and Ezreal doesn't match Kaisa in all games in terms of damage dealt. There's situational games where the poke will outvalue the all-in that a Kaisa can pull off. But the thing that you should take away is that Ezreal is looking to bridge till the Corki Infinity Edge comes in. You have Skarner Alistar as a front line. It is very much about team fight. Meanwhile, Schalke, I think, are best played as side lane champions, 1-3-1 with Akali and Gnar, potentially having kill pressure on really either of their opponents, although Gnar will find it hard to actually kill a Corki in a 1v1. And in a scenario where you can set that up, your catch with Jarvan, Thresh from Fog of War, basically, if at all times Schalke are playing in an ARAM state or if they're playing in Vision, it's almost impossible for them to find meaningful victories because Origen can get into formation and just win 5v5s. These are the sort of spots where formation doesn't work, but this one suits Origen.
And the flash will be forced out in the end. Odoamne trying to play chicken around the Skarner ult. He does not want to risk it in the end. Knows he will go down almost immediately. Forced to back off, but this does give an avenue now for Schalke. The Dragon has been pulled out of the pit. With that ward there, you know that it has been spotted, but they do not know for certain what the Dragon's health is and will not opt to contest the Ezreal ult. Of course, not up for Patrik, even if he wanted to go for the Hail Mary.
I'm a huge lover of the ward you see on blue side placed behind the pit, and a reverse ward will be placed just towards the top side of this Rift Herald pit because it allows you to play on the other side of the map. Look for ganks, look for advantages, and know whenever someone's starting a neutral so you can get a tempo lead in the play. So Origen have that ward down. It doesn't cost anyone. They start up the Rift Herald, but it's down to 2,000. Let's watch this.
We may just see the 5v5. No rage stack for Gnar. Alphari losing out the bot side, but Trick is going to get that one in the end. Huge steal going to come through, but the jungler may just give his life. Abbedagge now switching for a bit more kills. Trick goes down. In the end, though, will be a trade of junglers here. Abbedagge now wants a bit more. Perfect execution coming in. He is mowing through this OG lineup. The Akali damage is there. Will not commit anything else. Rage building for Odoamne, but no target to find it. Schalke will take the fight.
A really good look this game from Abbedagge, getting no jungle resource, but being able to roam as the Akali and find advantages that he could not in the 2v1 scenarios last game. Watch the replay here. Kold smites first. It's a little bit early, not by much. 100 health left. Secondary smite. The fight has started, and with a lot of champions, I think Origen in a really good spot. But Kaisa can leap to the backline behind an Akali no one can contest, and then suddenly IgNar's chasing with a hook champion. No one has any threat on the carries of Schalke. They turned a iffy situation into a good one because Akali's roam was true, and the Kaisa ultimate allowed them to really get a nice setup.
And when we look at scrappy fights, you have to think that it favors Schalke. The hook, the CC, the potential for an Akali, a Jarvan, a Gnar to jump around, as well as the Kaisa. And on the upside for OG, the poke power they have mid-game is incredible, but executing in a scrappy fight feels so difficult and very much Schalke favored.
Yeah, while we called 1-3-1 for Schalke and we talked about team fight, if you wonder how that happens in terms of map formation, you put Alphari on a weak side, clearing up minions, and suddenly Corki rockets and mystic shots are flying by your face as Schalke, and you have two options, all in or be poked away from a turret. So it's very much the siege alongside the team fight for the team of Origen. That siege usually requires some cores that you'll notice the Ezreal is not going to be on time for now. Wait another 4 or 5 minutes there for those items to come in. But Schalke, I think, actually are behooved to keep swapping. Put down those lane wards you see, like, for example, the ward they have in the first brush. Get control wards around there. This time it's top side in trade for bot side. And just see who gets caught in transition. The Rift Herald's going to bring people up, and IgNar's ready to dunk them down with a death sentence if possible.
Patrik working towards that ultimate. Mystic shots will lower the cooldown, should have it available to clear any remaining minions, but has to be careful. Should be a few plates picked up here. That's why Upset steps forward, just to make sure that he does secure that local gold. And Abbedagge, meanwhile, having a bit of a field day on these trades in the mid lane. Having the extra sustain from the Gunblade going to make it a lot easier for him to stay in this lane.
Nice play, though. They actually did not have Jarvan threatening a turret dive topside when the Rift Herald went down. He went mid lane to see, hey, maybe we can catch Corki walking up to topside. Knew he wouldn't be needed for the Rift Herald charge to come down, and that's the primary objective. Add 320 gold to Upset's build. He's gone Stormrazor, so he's going to ignore the Manamune build that's sweeping the world and go for something that has more of a 2-item spike. In case you're wondering what that means in terms of the game, if you're looking for side lane picks, you love Manamune because you get a faster Q evolve. It delays your team fighting ability, which is the invisibility around the attack speed upgrade, for quite a long time, but you have the Q super early. Meanwhile, in this build, you're going to go Stormrazor. Your 2-item spike comes a lot earlier, so you'll be able to team fight and skirmish a bit more effectively. It's not as good if you want to just dodge lane and look for killer instinct ganks, but it's actually pretty hard for specifically the Gnar to set that one up unless he's Mega Gnar. So I actually don't mind rolling back an old build like the Stormrazor.
Neither do I. And to be honest, I think the downside of that tier build is you never really feel like you have the same pressure in lane, and you can see the CS difference between the laners. Feels like Kaisa going for an early BF sword obviously helps out a lot in these trades. Setting up Thresh, which you mentioned, very strong laning champion to succeed even more. And something we talked about earlier in the big ban, Papasmithy, was kind of the idea that Upset doesn't get to do his Kabe impression in this game. He doesn't get to leap into the backline and burn cooldowns as possible. But Abbedagge feels like he gets to take that role.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Kabe now gets, or rather Upset now gets to be the guy who free hits in these team fights if Origen don't find a fight on the right terms.
And I think that's why Kaisa, who for a lot of the European and North American region had kind of gone absent for a long time. I know Kaisa pick rate was a lot lower in summer than some other regions. It was highest in LPL after Rift Rivals and kind of the meeting of the minds there in Asia. We started to see a bit more Kaisa return, and now it's kind of cementing again. The fact that you can be both those things, a backline threat, but also just gonna stay backline and just do a more defensive, opportunistic Kaisa. The fact that you can be both is really powerful for her.
Definitely is, but it looks like Abbedagge was spotted out. He tried to find the Death Brush onto Patrik. Patrik did not stray close enough. But Mountain Drake secured in the meantime for Schalke, so Origen trying to force a play on the top side. Eyes on if they can actually secure that tower, but they are definitely behind it. Tempo will be the Dragon, as well as a potential tower traded away. If they do not secure that tier 1, it's purely a play in favor of Schalke.
And we're liking it. It's nice and clean. It's ordered play from Schalke. This is very much them playing a reasoned game. I feel like when I've watched them, they've fallen apart on some TP execution plays when the mid to late game comes around, maybe when the communication gets a bit more rough with the mixed language roster, but when they can start strong, they can often have games like this where you watch it and you're kind of nodding your head as an analyst, yep, that was the right play, yep, like the ward there. You use your conditional information to turn it into something. Origen is staying within touching distance, but 3,500 gold behind, and kind of looking to profit off a mistake from Schalke, because right now they can't actually set up the siege that they want. They're actually still short on the mana immune on Patrik, which probably is going to transform very quickly when he finishes it.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the tier stacks, but also, of course, Gangplank getting closer and closer to finishing the Kold, so in terms of individual matchup, he should be a bit better off, and you can see he's still not too scared of Odo. Sadly, Papa, 436, of course, 440 now as I check is going to continue to go up, but definitely not a fully stacked tier here, so very heavily delayed for the Ezreal, but might not be about the Ezreal if Kold can't find a play on this bottom side.
If you can't get the mana immune early, it can have a late evolve, because you don't just build tier and deal with it as much as possible. You usually go Sheen for lane presence, and that does slow down some of the timings there. They still have a strong siege, don't get me wrong, but they probably don't feel great about putting Corki and Ezreal in the same lane and actually getting value out of it at this present junction in the game, because the game has been Schalke controlled and because there's a lot of areas of the map they don't necessarily have vision supremacy. That does mean the sort of siege play, the 4-1 play we alluded to, is not there. And just defensive side, trading minions with Akali isn't for now the ideal game spot, but it's one Origen will tolerate.
And this does kind of harken back to the game we just casted before this. Now, admittedly, the GP a much stronger, I believe, scaling late game option than the Kled, but you still have Ezreal. It's kind of a bridge rather than a Azir. It's the Corki this time as your scaling threat, and I do wonder if OG are starting to run out of time to a certain degree here, because while Gnar doesn't necessarily scare up as well, in a lot of cases, that team fight impact with the hard CC is still something you can never underestimate.
It's one of those things where Gnar will hit a point with the next item where we get to know, is it a grouping Gnar or is it a play for lane Gnar, and GP kind of can choose very similarly. You can go Sterix here, and then Gnar doesn't kill you really at any point. You can go Essence Reaver and try to build much more for crit barrels in a team fight, and sometimes you want to wait to see what the enemy does before you actually choose between the two. Sometimes you can cut the difference here, a couple of long swords, so your first thought will be Essence Reaver, but we're not honor bound to that. From there, the game can warp, because Schalke have a really strong mid-game position where no one can be tanky enough to deal with Akali Kaisa damage, and thus you can potentially blow the game open with the Baron. That would be the Chaos play, that would be the way to get an unassailable lead for Schalke. But if we keep waiting, if we keep scaling, if we're here with small talk for 15 minutes and then we team fight, then Origen will be too powerful. So action is on Schalke, much the same way as Rogue, but Schalke have played the early game a lot more comfortably. They actually have first invitation to decide what we're doing next.
And Schalke have, it appears to decide, or have decided, the 1-3-1 might just be the option, as Odoamne does opt for the Bilgewater Cutlass here, a bit more sustained, potentially the Blade of the Rune King to help him chase down that GP in extended plays, as well as the Caulfield's Warhammer. Still a bit of flexibility there in terms of what exactly Alphari can do with it, but imagine that it might just be all about the side lane here in the mid game. Interestingly, Papasmithy, the QSS tax has now been paid by Upset. And if we swap over to the gold here for second observers, you can see that there's a pretty significant lead for Upset, and it won't actually cost him much of anything.
No, with the 450 bounty, you can easily tell that the gold lead here is going to be more than a QSS. So you can see it's about a QSS and then 1,000 gold on top. So in a very comfortable position is Upset. Play the Ruin King coming from Odoamne, so he is going to try to chip away at the health bars, and meanwhile cooldown reduction towards, most likely, the Essence Reaver on the side for the GP. So there may be a timing where that solo kill potential will be there, the chase potential can be there. Gnar, 5 points in Hyper is when Play the Ruin King plus Hyper is doing magic and physical damage, health-related shenanigans, and it's no fun for the poor pirate there. Piracy for once is going to be very, very costly for Gangplank, so because of that, that is another area where there will be timings where there is true kill potential in the 1v1. I still am not going to be convinced until Schalke shows me how they're going to engineer a Baron. In my head, it looks like, wow, that Gnar damage is really hurting me. I'm under my inner turret as GP. Meanwhile, wards in the blue side jungle of Origen, and then one hook onto a carry later, a pick, and then a map that is being ripped at the seams. That's how you win a game as Schalke from here. If you don't actually hit all the marks on the checklist, more often than not, a couple of health bars go down, some minions are lost, but otherwise, farm fill is going to be enacted, and that's the sort of area Origen will be happy to opt into.
At this stage of the game, of course, with that 3k gold deficit they find themselves in, as well as the Mountain and the Ocean Drake, Schalke now looks to secure a second Mountain.
Freebie.
And this will make a lot of their decision-making processes a bit easier, as it does mean that the Baron is a much easier take, a much faster take when you have these two Drakes paired together. But still, Papasmithy, I think you're so right, because we very often see teams find early game leads, and the difference between a solid team and it feels like a great team is what you can do in that mid-game stage to close out games with confidence.
And there's some easy things to do. For example, if you want to play a Baron game right now, how many control wards does Schalke have? You might look at me and say, Papasmithy, the answer's going to be 4. But the 2 from Gnar don't count because he's not going near the pit. He's playing bot side of the map, as we can see. So there's actually only 2 control wards from a freshly shopped Abbedagge that can actually set up a perimeter around Baron and force someone to face check a Thresh. Those are the only effective control wards they have. What they want is to get a reset, put down control wards, and then have secondary ones to try to punish Origen when they inevitably have to give them up. But also, we can try a piggyback play.
Bot lane play. Odoamne wants to transform as quickly as he can. He will be able to do so. That means Abbedagge will grab the kill. They secure that one on the bottom side. All 4 control wards there on the bottom side of the map, but they find the kill, so it won't matter.
For now, it's just going to be a kill. They're going to actually have just a ring around a Rosie, swap lane assignments, put Akali there, and yes, Gnar will be able to play some control wards around the Baron, so lane swap scenario enacted. Corki going to go down to answer, but you'll notice no objective was ever going to come from this play because Schalke didn't have priority in lanes to get more, but Trick's going to try coming through.
Mid-brush chicken is now coming through. Kold has to be careful. TP now coming in as well. IgNar going to be contributing to the team. The QSS and the Flash is going to think about safety. Suppressed in the middle of the team, but Odoamne and Abbedagge are now on the way in. The rage is building for Odo. Slowly but surely he can move into this fight, but Abbedagge juke it in, juke it out, and will be able to take Kold out in the meantime. Quick exchange. Neither side gaining or losing too much.
And 1-for-1 when you have a 3,500 gold lead and the enemy team has a scaling advantage suits Origen again just fine. It was one of those moments where it was hasty teleport required to come through from Abbedagge. Yes, he picks up another kill. He is a very fearsome warrior on this Akali. But you always have to answer when the onus is on you to do things. What do you get out of this fight that changes the game state? Again, it's nothing as we take a replay. On the bot lane play where it was all about the chase, we missed this context in the middle.
Nukeduck looks like does manage to make it out in the midst of that play. Obviously this one we talked about it. Yes, it's a kill. Yes, it's nice to have, but ultimately not able to amount to anything else before we get into this one.
But shout out to our observers here for catching the context around the mid lane, because it was important to see that chunk out. A pick in transitions, what we talked about the Thresh being best in, but this play is very overforced when Odoamne has to come in exhausted and Abbedagge has to use his teleport to come into a fight, because now they have to resend the Gnar bot lane if they want to play anyone there, because Akali just used the team fight to stave even for a 1-for-1.
Yeah, and I thought the favored Origen a little more. I thought Upset had burned Flash. Turns out it was just a QSS ult to take him out to safety. So not quite as many resources burned as I initially expected. And 3k gold lead. You know, QuickShot said it earlier today. I'll say it again. The later we get, the less it's going to mean. The Mountain Drakes, of course, still very important. But as we look at the itemization, Ezreal finally on 2. We'll see what his 3rd item will be. And Corki, a bit of a split build here in terms of... Ooh. Ooh, okay, well that was a lot of damage. That surprised me. But bit of a split build on the Corki. Doesn't quite have any of the major items completed quite yet.
And we know where it's going, but for now, it's kind of a white flag build. It's like if someone builds a Akali, you're like, okay, you don't really want to fight now. It's basically what's being invited by the build that's going on there. And I watch the gold difference here, which, as you can tell, started off with a little bit of Origen, but it's slowly falling. But this is what sort of gold lead where the context is important. The actual absolute number of 3,675 gold is relevant here, because while it's trending, it's slowly growing from 8 minutes to 24 minutes to become 3,500 is not actually in any way a gold explosion. It's, again, super manageable for Origen in this game. They continue to well defend their territory, and Schalke aren't able to actually amp up the pressure and allow a pick like Thresh to succeed, because mostly Thresh is just cycling vision and then backing.
And a difficult spot to be in, too, because you talk about all the scaling aspects. Often people forget about the support matchup, but the difference in what an Alistar can bring to a team fight versus a mid to late game Thresh without, let's say, a clutch hook into Fog of War is very, very sizable. And Mithy, no stranger to being a clutch playmaker himself in these tense moments. Kold maybe fishing for something, a lot of initial damage going down on the upside. We'll chunk him out. We'll force him away from this play. No sustain in his itemization either outside of the Doran's Blade, so gonna struggle to come back to this one.
And it's one of those moments where you look at the timeline, oh, that'll buy you another 2 minutes, because that's gonna require a reset at some point. It's also gonna mean that Upset can't as confidently walk up. IgNar low here as well. Origen can just cheat here and just push through mid lane, don't care about the position their side lanes, and get most of this turret down. Schalke, if they wanted that Baron play, getting the mid lane out of turret would be lovely, but they've just never shown enough threat in the side lane to do it. Here's Odoamne with his Blade of the Ruin King done, but right now he's actually in a 1-for-0 laning phase. Might get some turret damage, but there's no one trying to knock down. GP gonna be staying away from him for now.
Looks like Corki is now being sent down to respond as well with the package. And I think might just try to pick up the waves here. Can't imagine we'll see anything more aggressive, but we'll stop from getting anything greater.
Gnar just has no threat on a Corki because the slow doesn't matter. He'll just Valkyrie away and there's no chase potential realistically with Frozen Mallet not in the build. Odoamne's given up. He's going for a bit of team fight here with the Warden's Mail. Potentially have to answer trade damage, and that damage from GP we talked about is definitely being opted into. Yes, he has 3 for done. He's at 40% CDR. Is it Ashe? Is it GP? That's the build you see on both. It's going to be nice and comfortable there, and this is the epitome of the lull state, Drakos. This is when we'd be talking about some sweet nothings on the LC cable.
Do you have any preference on sweet nothings? You're the expert of the sweet nothings.
I'm an equal opportunist, sweet nothing.
That's fair. This is where we would say something like...
I'm listening. Roleplay some LEC casting for me.
Roleplay, this is normally where I'd bring up my narrative points. I talk about Trick, controversial
What's
figure.
he got there? He's
caught out, he's dead. That's why he's a controversial figure. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and the Lantern not gonna take him to safety. Interruption! Clean headbutt from Mithy, denying that play, but now Odoamne moving into the midst of the team. He wants to get something, he's desperate to find something, but he's only gonna find Mithy. Knocked to the wall, Abbedagge does not see an avenue in, and he's gonna have to walk away. Well played by OG, and Trick caught sleeping there in the jungle.
Yeah, Schalke swept off the ground there. 2 easy kills, nice and clean, and looks so sad for Odoamne, desperately looking for a Gnar ultimate onto someone, having to deal with an Alistar. Between the entire team, doing a bit of quick math here, we're talking about 950 damage or so by Schalke. They didn't even break 4 digits. Meanwhile, effortlessly breaking 4 digits on 2, and Alphari 5 away.
And this is where things start to get very difficult, Papasmithy. The gold lead continues to shrink. Dragons still important, folks. You can never forget them as we move later, but ultimately, the decision-making is what is suspect here. Trick
but Schalke did risk. So much right. But the game went on, and we talked about how time was bought, trades happened, but they were 1-for-1. And then moments like this happen where Mithy, control of his own destiny, made sure Trick had no exit plan, and then Schalke, 5v4, or 4v5, we should say, overforce with Odoamne saying, well, we were winning before. You understand how these plays come about, because as a pro player, you're so used to, yep, we're doing well, yep, it's fine, okay, we couldn't get the kills there, it's still fine. You're not necessarily thinking as much about power spikes and exact timings because we have the map fully in front of us and we're removed from being in the game. You're not feeling the, like, gut-wrenching feel of a game slipping away until a moment like that where in hindsight in the VOD review, coach comes to you like, what are you thinking here? And it's just the game state had changed without Schalke really fully being understanding of that. And suddenly Origen, they're not multiple thousand gold away. They're 1,400 gold away. And yes, there's 4 Drakes and maybe an Elder Dragon win condition to split the map. But if we're talking about just sitting in one lane, I'm pretty damn scared of this daring Bombardier.
Absolutely have to be 3 items completed. Papasmithy, the rapid fire cannon, as well as the Infinity Edge. No longer the thrift shot on that second and third item, completing both of them. Big Ezreal ulti, but not going to connect on anyone but Odoamne.
So think about what happened. 1-for-1 trades, some places where they couldn't get enough pressure. What was bought in that time? Well, some items came into Schalke, but you're not really looking at them being like, wow. Meanwhile, thrift shopping turned into just being completely pimped out. So at some point, you're feeling pretty good if you're Nukeduck. You have left the thrift shop, you're straight to Gucci, you bought the best top label stuff, and now you get to go on and run a fashion parade against Schalke.
Gonna pop some tags, man. Got through for Nukeduck. And this is the thing, you can see Odoamne a little bit more hesitant to push forward in these waves now, realizing that the team is on the back foot. Moments ago, he was that Gnar, more worried about the rage bar running out than his chances in this game. But as you mentioned, things start to get harder, and when you look at the standings, there's no surprises.
And Schalke's going for the classic, well, what about a Baron? There's a ward on it, there's no control wards in there.
They do a lot
this
of damage,
one is risky, but you're right, the pace is up there.
Getting lower, getting lower. Kold now trying to step forward. They are going to be able to grab it. Schalke now need to make it out. That's the only hope. They are going to be able to walk away, except for the Thresh. He will be sacrificed, but that's pretty big for Schalke, able to speed run that Baron.
And it's against the script. That's one thing Origen hadn't accounted for. They've been so good about keeping Schalke on a short leash from behind. A tough trick to do. Try it against G2 at your own peril. In this particular game, the double mountain was something they didn't accomplish, they didn't account for. All the Blade of Ruin King, etc. Abbedagge trying to make something happen.
Trying to buy a bit more time, trying to get a fight on their terms. Odoamne going to start the chase. Mithy now going to be in trouble. But he's looking for a big fight. Odoamne is going to get burned down before he can even transform. That's going to be massive. But the rest of Schalke are now here. Eyes on upset. Ultimate available. He can lead him to the back line if he needs to. But Alphari is on the way in at the end of the day. They will just back off. Top laner and support. Traded for just a support. Schalke potentially overcommitting there.
Especially because those are Baron buffs that are now gone. Remember, they were the team with Baron and they've given up 2 buffs. Specifically one on a side laner in Gnar, which makes GP a happy chappy because now he can farm and not have to deal with the Baron up minions. So never want to trade like that when you have the Baron. They saw something that wasn't there. Gonna watch the replay to fully understand all of this. Schalke, we were talking about how they were doing it in Wars. They had to appreciate that, but they just said, in most other game states, if we don't get Baron now, we probably lose. And I actually think they're correct. So I favor this bold move and not the kind of reverse game, the other game, if we're in some sort of Inception world, is the other side of the game where you just watch on as all of your inhibitors die and the game ends in front of you. In this case, they tried something. This was perhaps the over pursuit, though, because you're watching it, and if I'm watching it, I'm like, how exactly does this lead to a positive reward when Odoamne is exhausted to begin it and actually has to build up all the Gnar in fight?
Yeah, and as fantastic as this Blade of the Ruin King was for breaking down that Baron, in that moment you would have much preferred tanky stats, would have rather had something that could let him get to that Gnar point. And this is why Gnar is a champion that when it feels good, it feels really good, but when it's not working, you can see why people aren't always eager to priority pick it.
Whenever you pick champions that go 2 laning items into tank, the realistic thing about this meta is, unless you completely play around it early when they have the damage items, you don't actually kill anyone, and then you start building tank, and you're not really a tank, and you're not able to kill a GP in a side lane. That becomes the kind of unfortunate scenario is that, yes, perfect teleport with the rage bar there. It's going to be a good inroad. In every other case, probably GP outvalues you. So track to see if Odoamne can make us a believer, pull off a really big teleport play with the Gnar. But as it stands, the gold lead is now back to 2,000, but just like we spoke about before, at 33 minutes, it's pretty irrelevant.
Yeah, lackluster Baron power play as well. 1,100 gold. Starting to shrink a little bit as Nukeduck will grab a bit of farm. And Abbedagge and Odoamne want to be those threats on the side lane, but the rest of the team backing off. Maybe in the mid lane, now that they have now returned, we'll be able to grab a tier 2 tower and make something of this Baron buff. But it's not an inhibitor. It is not a massive advantage for the team. And Schalke will get the Baron. Does get them a little bit more, but definitely not everything that they wanted.
But for Origen, while we have praised their defensive play, how do they turn the other cheek? How do they get aggressive here? Because their initiation is going to be Skarner, largely answered by QSS. And then, honestly, it's going to be Alistar only, which obviously is going to be situational at best. So they are a comp that is mostly about getting items that force a chunk out onto Schalke, putting down wards and saying, come to us, and Corki will kill you if you walk in too close, or we're going to kill the big objective. Problem is, though, the reason that's what doesn't work is bot lane.
Abbedagge is just barely going to make it out. My God, sliver of health. See exactly how much he walked away with, but just brutal exchange.
I'm gonna guess 30.
Well, it was regen, maybe potentially regen back to 90. 90 when I clicked it, but game of inches there.
Again, thing to remember though for Origen is they can't just play around one objective when 4 Drakes and an Elder Dragon spawning at 37 minutes will mean that turns out you don't have enough vision to cover both. So any sort of kills like that, the chunks we see in the picture-in-picture, this Corki is not messing around at all. Those sort of chunks can get you free objectives, Drakos, and that is something for us to watch.
Yeah, definitely something to keep your eyes on. The good news is at least the Flash is traded for a Flash. But Abbedagge with TP advantage maybe can hope to get something done, but his ultimate cooldown much more crucial than Nukeduck's. Definitely something he would like to have in the fights to come, and still, minute and 30 seconds away from the Baron, 2 minutes and 30 seconds away from the other Dragon. But these are going to be our arenas, Papasmithy, and at this rate, it feels like OG is poised to take complete control of this game, short of Schalke finally finding this opportunity.
I want to see Origen do something in the minute grace period they have between both buffs being on the map. That is where they can say, hey, we're on the Baron, come to us now, or it's going to die before you can trade for Elder. If it continues like this to, I guess at this point, 37.5 minutes, and both are up, then actually it does get tricky for Origen to play both sides of the map. So that is a timing we can observe from Origen, see if they can exploit it. All the damage dealt here by the AD carries, no surprise, although Patrik was a little bit behind on some of his timings, wasn't able to be parked alongside Corki, so he is slacking a little bit in the big numbers.
Yeah, obviously the gold suffering as well for him, despite the kleptomancy that he had in the early lane. And some defensive itemization coming out, knowing Nukeduck probably the primary carry of this team, willing to just be the guy who doesn't die to the Akali.
Everyone's really good at not dying this game. We've had 15 kills in 35 minutes. This is one of the slower games that I've been treated to, although I got the Fiestas yesterday, so maybe I shouldn't complain. We got, who knows what kind of game.
You wait, Papasmithy. We got the next game, and we still have the back half of this game, and as confident as I believe LEC teams can close out, we are also 13 seconds away from what I like to call the Fiesta Zone.
Well, Origen, at least, are listening in on the comms and say, yep, we really should start Baron ASAP, because otherwise the map gets harder to play. Control ward on it, going to be contested by Schalke. Where are we at in terms of control wards? 2 for Alistar. Alistar's gone. We're going straight on this one, and with Schalke
throwing it right into the pit. Upset does so much damage to this Baron, they're going to try to burn it down, but they need to get Kold out of that pit. The hook goes in, but Kold is going to be able to take it away. Massive steal coming through, and now they're trying to win the fight. But meanwhile, in the backline, Nukeduck is still alive, and well, Odoamne looking for a big transform. Maybe it can be enough, but Upset does so much damage. There he is. There's the cleanup. Mithy now caught out. Yes, they give up the Baron. A disaster for Schalke, no doubt, but they turn it around in an instant with a triple for Upset.
They take the 50-50, they don't get the Baron, but they still trade up. Unfortunately, Origen not in formation. Mithy late to the whole fight because he went for a recall. I also was very surprised with how assertively Schalke started the Baron. They're going straight on to get an inhibitor, and maybe even more.
26 seconds on Patrik, 26 seconds on Mithy, 20 on Kold. They could potentially end the game. They do not have the super seer. The Baron buff in the hands of Alphari. He'll do his best.
Can he clear out the minions?
Waves. Are Schalke willing to step forward and tank the towers to ensure that the minions are safe? Alphari still has relatively safe wave clear unless they can hook him right here, but IgNar is going to go wide. Buying a bit of time, they turn their sights on Alphari. They desperately want to close this out. Odoamne is going to have rage. How much will he commit? The ultimate is there. Odoamne dead. Schalke eyes set on the prize. They break one tower, a second one in their sights. Kold moving forward, but Schalke will back away. They do not want to risk anything. OG will live to fight another day.
Yeah, the finish there wouldn't have happened as you're already alive, and then Nukeduck soon to follow, so smart to back away. This might cost them a free Elder, though, because they cannot just disengage to that. Abbedagge actually teleports early, as Kold is all about stopping the backs as the rest of his team runs towards Elder.
Trying to cover the retreat, but they know they might just have an advantage here. Odoamne, not too tanky though, has to back off. Lantern will take them away. Schalke desperately need to reset. Double Ocean Drakes though will heal them up a decent amount. Nukeduck, look at him though, packaged, ready to go, ready to pick a fight if necessary. This feels like it should be OG's Elder Dragon. Will Schalke stay for this one? Big risk if they stay and commit.
They can't actually use minion pressure to win this one because Alphari's respawning with Cannon Barrage and Teleport in 10 seconds to deal with the super minions pushing in. Schalke would do good to reset, but if they continue to stick around, there's always the potential this is turned on its head.
Schalke trying to catch their opponent between a rock and a hard place, forcing them to choose. Alphari will be able to clear out these waves quite easily. A decent amount of damage, though, dealt into the Nexus.
Are you ready for another 50-50? Could happen.
I'm absolutely ready for it. Odoamne, where's he going to go? Going to throw Patrik into the wall. Not going to connect. Patrik with a quick leap out, trying to zone Odoamne from the rest of the team. Drake is down the front line. Upset now free, hitting into the middle of the team. Yet again, Kold finds the steal. A miracle, most certainly. Abbedagge locked out on the side of the fight now, desperately trying to retreat, but there's the big one, and Abbedagge Barely just going to make it away, but Nukeduck says, not again. Burn, baby, burn.
Oh, look at the base, look at the base.
Oh, just when you think it can't get wild. Papa, you wanted a fiesta, and Schalke are here for a party.
Berlin tips their hat to Schalke 04. They pick up the victory over Origen in an upset in many people's books. Schalke was looking at the results around them, vitality on a 2-0 week, and were no doubt concerned that their top 4 spot, their top 6 overall spot, was going to go begging, but they find a way to engineer it. It looked like an overstay, it looked like the resources were there, but the Pirate comes in, the Kaisa comes down the back, and suddenly it's an old school European backdoor to end it all up.
You were just talking about Peke earlier in the game.
Yep.
Feels appropriate, Papasmithy. Obviously an intense game, quick hug between former teammates, and at the end of the day, a win is a win, and that would have been the win that tied OG up with Schalke, but instead, Schalke will increase the distance between them. 8 and 6 now, compared to OG's 6 and 8. Playoff race only gets tighter and tighter as we move into later weeks, and for Schalke, obviously things to improve on, but at the end of the day, like I said, win's a win. Has to feel pretty good.
It feels like a learning game for both teams. I think Schalke did a lot right early game, then struggled to close the game, struggled to actually make this a game where they could use their Thresh to get aggressive picks. When we complimented Origen, but delaying the game. But to what end was kind of the query we had, and at the end, it was Schalke just rolling the dice again and again. They kind of got the gambler's advantage, because how many Barons and Elders, it was back-to-back, second Baron into Elder Steal, and yet Kold ends up with a fat nothing like when it comes to either MVP or game victory.
Kold walks away from this game saying, guys, like, what else do you possibly want from me? Like,
He's only one Skarner. What's a boy to do?
Major objectives. And I do wonder, I don't think Schalke will walk away from this game without plenty to look back on, because you wonder if they don't have the double oceans to heal up there on that play, if they don't have the double mountains to actually really threaten these objectives with a pick like the Kaisa, if those options are even open to them to find these miracle ways back in the game. But the hesitation that we saw from them to push their lead, the inability to push it to greater lengths, is something that is not Drake dependent.
But if we're going to be kind of critical of their lack of opportunism from ahead, nice opportunism to say, wait, the Pirates coming in. We can go down there and use that TP advantage, and that was the call. You wonder if it's from upset from a teammate, but it works out. They close out the game. Alphari just power walking in, knowing there's nothing he can do. No chain link barrel can work unless you had about 8 or 9. It wasn't going to happen. So at the end of the day, Schalke's going to feel great they walk away with the points. And this playoff race is at no risk of being any clearer. I'm hoping it goes to the final day with a multiple amount of spicy matchups.
That's all anyone can ask for, of course. Let's take a look at some of the highlights of the game. It was wild, the Baron and Elder. I think heroic moments from Kold. Sadly, not enough, but huge.
Yep. 686 health, the last I spied with Might of the Lie. Kold got it. Kold gets out. And this was the start of something, but Schalke was really, really gambling this game with saying, yes, Kold will get in the pit. We're going to try and turn this into a fight, more of a skirmish. And the first time, the Alistar wasn't in position, so they couldn't actually fight the front-to-back team fight that it seemed that Origen was set up to lead. And here's the secondary fight. Odoamne and Abbedagge looking for backline access. Another fight where Gnar can't turn things. You'll see Kold pick up the Smite Steal again. But at the end of the day, because they were creating pandemonium and there was always unequal numbers, in one fight, Mithy not there. This fight, Alphari teleporting in late. Upset says, thank you very much. We catch it just as the teleport completes and the base turret's going down. And it turns out, have a look at those cooldowns. You can see them at home. There ain't no cooldowns available. Therefore, the victory goes to Schalke 04.
And a half-hearted waddle from the GP, as you mentioned, as he desperately tries to stop it. But now Schalke moving up, 4th place, an excellent position to be in. Obviously, 3rd place gets you, lets you choose your opponent between 5th and 6th place in our playoff format. So very important to get. And honestly, at this stage, 2nd is not completely out of reach, but your key player of the game, you got 3 options. At Lolesports on Twitter, as always, is the place. Abbedagge, Upset, and IgNar. Now, I'm personally inclined,
I'm missing,
to give it to the guy who won the game with 1 decisive play.
Uh-huh.
Now, you could argue the Akali popped off, and I would say that's great, but backdoors. We have a history here in Europe. I mean, what was Expecke if not the backdoor hero? I mean,
the upset backdoor sounds like a very different thing. I think Peke will still keep the name. I think he still gets to keep the trademark on that one, but
Sure.
backdooring Origen, always a good feel.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are on the cusp of, I believe, the match of the eons.
Oh, yeah.
We're calling it. It is G2 Esports versus Fnatic. Coming up after this, we're going to be joined by VODS. I'm looking forward to the breakdown here, but we'll be right back after this quick break.